my algebra class. Let's go ahead and get ready to do 1.4 homework. Okay, I've got all the odds as usual, which leaves you all of the evens. It says simplify the expression. Well, if I'm simplifying the absolute value of -9, we know that absolute value means how far it is away from 0. And -9 is 9 away from 0, just like +9 is. Now we got the absolute value of 14, and we're going to subtract it from the absolute value of -14. We know the absolute value of any number is going to be a positive number because it's a distance away from 0. So this 14 minus 14, because it's negative, is not in the absolute value brackets. So this is going to be 0. Now number 5 has a negative in front of it, and then it says the absolute value of -5 times -7. Well, this is going to give us -35. We know that -5 times -37 will give us 35, right? The absolute value would have been a 35 anyways, but the negative outside over here makes us a -35. Now we have 27 over -3, which is basically a division problem. 27 divided by 3 will give us a -9, and of course the absolute value would make it a 9 anyways. All right, you have 2, 4, 6, and 8 to do. Let's go ahead and get to number 9. It says solve the equation, graph the solution if possible. All right, they're saying if r, the absolute value of r, equals -2. All right, now we're solving the equation and then graphing the solution. So the absolute value of a number must be greater or equal to 0 and cannot be equal to -2. So the equation has no solution. All right, there's no way for this to happen because we know that it's going to be greater than or equal to 0. Okay, now over here we've got m plus 3, and it says equals 7. Well, if we go ahead and solve this, we realize we're going to have m plus 3 equals 7, and we would subtract 3 from both sides, leaving m equals 4. But we could also have m plus 3 equals -7, and that would give us -3 on both sides, leaving us with a -10. So the solutions are m is -10 and m is 4. All right, see number 13 here. It says in exercise 9-22, or 9 through 20, excuse me, solve the equation, graph the solution if possible. So we're still graphing these solutions. We got t divided by 2 in here, right? It says equals 6. So that means t over 2 could equal 6 or -6, right? If it's t over 2 equals 6, I would multiply both sides by 2, and t would equal 12. If it was t over 2 equals -6, then of course I would multiply by 2 in the set, and it would be -12. So the solutions could be -12 or 12. All right, you have number 14. Number 15 says 4b minus 5 equals 19. So that means I'm going to get 4b minus 5 can equal +19, or it could equal -19, right? So if it equals +19, I know I'll add 5 to both sides. 19 plus 5 is 24. And then I would divide 4 away from 4b. And then I would divide 24 by 4, because whatever I divide from one side, I divide from the other. 24 divided by 4 is 6. So b could be 6. But if I was to make this -19, when I add that 5, that -19 will turn to -14, right? Because we have our sign different. We take the big number minus the small number and keep the sign of the big number. Now I got 4b equals -14. When I divide 4 away this time, I have -14 over 4. And I could go ahead and reduce both of these, right, by 2, by dividing by 2. And a -14 divided by 2 is -7, and 4 divided by 2 is 2. So my answer would be -7 over 2. I would prefer if they would have written, I'm just going to put it over here because It bothers me when they leave it improper. A negative 3 1/2. All right. Because that's what it is. 2 goes into 7 3 times with 1/2 left over. That's a proper mixed number. And then you can see it would also be negative 3 1/2 right over here. All right. Let's move on. You have number 16 to do. I'm going to number 17. In this one, before I can go ahead and start solving this to a positive or negative 76, I'm going to divide 2 away, all right, leaving just the absolute value. So I'm going to divide this all by 2. Okay, right over here. In fact, they went ahead and multiplied it by 2. I think you could have divided this by 2 and then divide this by 2. But we're going to go on with the motions here. They multiplied 2. They treated this like parentheses. And 2 times negative 8 is negative 16W. And then we had 2 times positive 6, that's positive 12. And then you would go ahead and solve. You have negative 6W. You would have plus 12 is equal to 76. You would subtract 12 from both sides to combine like terms. This would leave you at negative 16W equals 64, because 76 minus 12 is 64. And then you would have to divide 16 away from both sides, and you'd have 64 divided by negative 16. And then that would leave you W equals negative 4. All right. On this side, when you distribute your properties, you'd have a negative 76 over here waiting. And then you would, again, subtract 12 from both sides, leaving this with a negative 88. And now you have negative 16W equals negative 88. You divide by negative 16. A negative divided by negative is a positive, and 88 divided by 16 will be 5.5. 18 is yours. I'm just out of curiosity here. I want to see if what I said could have happened. If I would have took this and divided it by 2 first, and I'm just going to bring it over here, then I would have had negative 8W plus 6, right? And this would have been a 2 here. Remember, we would have divided everything by 2 to get rid of it. And that means we would have had to divide this side by 2. This would have left me negative 8W plus 6 is equal to, well, that's going to give me, let's see, half of 76 would be 38. And then I would subtract 6 from both sides. This would give me a negative 8W equals, well, 38 minus 6 would be 32. And then I would have divided by negative 8. And that means I would have divided by negative 8 over here. Look at that, 32 divided by negative 8 would have left me with W is equal to negative 4. Same way. I'm curious, let's go and try this one over here. And I'm just, like I said, I'm going to see if my theory was correct. If I have 2 to the times negative 8W plus 6, I'm just giving you an alternate way of doing this, equals negative 76. Again, we could divide both sides by 2. This would give you a negative 8W plus 6 is equal to, well, we divide by 2 over here, right? Sorry, I should have put this over here like this. And this would have gave me a negative 32. And now when we solve this, I would subtract 6 from both sides. This would have left me with negative 8W is equal to negative 38. All right. And, you know, I think, yes, I'm sorry, I messed up over here and put 32, didn't I? This should have been 38. Sorry about that. Little miscalculation. And then when I minus 6, that would have been a negative 44. I'm just going to double check that because if this was 38, right, when I divide it, this one would have been negative 38. And 4 plus 6 is 14. You carry the 1, yes, negative 44. All right, and then I would divide it by negative 8, which means I would have divided this by negative 8, right? And as you can see, we're barking up the same tree here. I mean, I could divide both of these by 4, right? And that would give me negative 11 over negative 2, right? And then that would be a negative divided by a negative is a positive, right? So we would have a positive answer of 5 1/2, which is 5.5. And as you can see, both my answers, okay, match what we have over here. So it isn't just an alternate method if you see that the 2 is in front there, or any number is in front there. All right, but we're going to move on. Number 19 is for me to do. And this one, I imagine they're going to distribute properties again. So we'll take a negative 4 and multiply it to 8, which will give us negative. Well, look at this. They decided to do it my way. Okay, this time they divided by negative 4. I never know when this book is coming or going, but we will get the same answer either way. We're dividing by negative 4 here, which means we divide by here. Now we have negative 13 over 4 is equal to 8 minus 5n. Now, notice over here it says the absolute value of an expression must be greater than or equal to 0. Okay? The expression 8 minus 5n cannot be equal negative 13 over 4. Remember, whatever the absolute value is, it's got to be a positive number. It's got to be 0 or a positive number. Okay, so it cannot possibly equal negative 13 over 4. All right, 20 is for you to do. 21, okay. On this one, we're going to have to, I imagine we're going to have to take this positive 3 and bring it over. Yes, that's right. So we're bringing the positive 3 over. The opposite of positive 3 is negative 3. Whatever I subtract from one side to the other. And now I have 0 is equal to negative 2 times the absolute value of 1/4 s minus 5. Now remember, to get rid of that negative 2, we're going to divide by negative 2, which means we're going to take 0 and divide by negative 2. Well, 0 divided by anything is still 0. And now we have the absolute value of 1/4s minus 5. So we have 0 equals 1/4 s minus 5. We can add 5 to both sides to get rid of that negative 5. And now we have 5 is equal to 1/4 s. We know we're going to multiply by 4 to get rid of 1/4, which means we'll multiply by 4 on the other side, and 5 times 4 is 20. And that leaves us with 20 equals s. And now you see the solution is just one solution, 20 equals s, okay? 22 is for you to do. 23 says, modeling real life, the average distance from Earth to the sun is 92.95 million miles. The actual distance varies from the average by up to 1.55 million miles. Write and solve an absolute value equation to find the minimum and maximum distance from the sun. So if they're talking about the distance is 92.95 million miles, and it says it's by an average of this, we know that it's going to equal a positive or negative, right? We're going to have to set up our equation where it will be plus, or one is going to be plus 1.55, the other one will be minus, and here we go right here. So we had d, right, the distance, minus 92.95 million miles, and it's equal to, we got 1.55. So this means, remember, it says that it varies from the average. So that means it can be plus 1.55 million miles or minus it. And that's what they got here. 1.55 or minus 1.55. So when it's a positive 1.55, we're adding the 92.95 to both sides. And this gives us the D is equal to 94.5. And that would be million miles. But if it was a negative, then when we add the 92.95, we would have to subtract 1.55 from it, which would make it 91.4. So the minimum distance is 91.4 million miles, and the maximum distance is 94.5 million miles, okay? And if you're thinking the average distance from Earth to the sun, why is it changing? But remember, as it goes in orbit, right, it's not perfectly at the same distance all the time, right? So that's what they're trying to say here. All right, 24 is for you to do. You have A and B. I'm going to go to 25. It says match the absolute value equation with the graph without solving the equation. I'm going to move this out of the way. So it says we're matching this to this without solving the equation. Well, how would I do this first one here? Automatically, in my head, okay, I'm thinking without solving the equation. Let's just look over here. We got from -6 to -2, right? I'm going to think that this wouldn't be this, because if this is a +4 and we're differentiating by 2, well, let's see, we've got, this could be a positive or -4, come to think of it, which means we're going to be adding or subtracting 2 to it, right? So in this case, the halfway point is -2, and the distance from the halfway point to the minimum or maximum respectivity is 4. So we're going with B, all right? And that's because if this is going to be 4, then when we subtract 4, that's going to be 2, right? But remember, if this is -4, right, and we make it the other way, and I'm just going to write it both ways so you can see that for number 25, we would have wrote this as x plus 2 equals 4, and we also would have wrote it as x plus 2 equals -4, right? And when we did this, you see, and I know you're saying without solving the equation, to me that seems, you still have to, at a glance, be able to go ahead and look at these and know what to do. We're subtracting 2 from both sides, right? And that's going to make x equals 2, right? And everyone sees that's right here. But then over here, when we -2, we're combining with a -4. When my signs are the same, I find the sum. So x would equal -6, and everyone sees that fits perfectly right here, okay? I'm going to leave you number 26. Number 27, okay, I see that there's a 4 here, but I know that I'm going to add 2 to 4, and then I'll add 2 to -4. If I add 2 to 4, I know then that's going to be the highest thing would be 6, right? So when I look at all these, I think in C has to work pretty good for 27, right? And then, of course, so this is -4, that I'm adding 2 to it, and that's going to be a -2. I would say 27 has to be C. All right? The halfway point is 2, right? Halfway point is 2. And you see what they're saying here, right? They're saying the halfway point for this one is -2, right? Because if this was -4, right, then you're halfway there, it's going to be -2. If this one is 4, then the halfway point is going to be 2. All right, so let's go ahead and leave number 28 for you. I'm going to number 29, solve the equation. This time we have n over here. So that means that this can either equal a positive n or negative n, all right? So if it's a positive n, we know we're going to combine the variables, right? And we're going to take the -4n and move it to the other side of the number. That's going to give us n minus 4, and that's a -3n. And we divide the -3 away, that's going to leave us -15 divided by -3 3, which is positive 5, because a negative divided by negative is a positive. Over here, we see that we have negative n. So when we take that negative 4 and combine it over, it's going to make a negative 5n. Because when my signs are the same, I find the sum. I add them. And that's going to make me divide by 5 from both sides. And this time, negative 15 divided by negative 5 will be a positive 3. Okay? So my solutions are 5, n equals 5, or n equals 3. Now for number 31. In this case, we're going to go ahead and get rid of the 2 in front by distributing the properties. I'm going to take 2 times k, that's going to be 2k, right? And 2 times 2, that'll be 4, all right? And this one's pretty simple across the board. We distributed the properties. We combine the like terms. We're going to take 2k away from each side, leaving us with k minus 2 equals 4. Then we're going to combine our like terms. We're going to add 2 to both sides, and k equals 6. This is a little more complex because we have 2 times negative k plus 2. So we have to remember the first thing we're going to do is take this negative and multiply it to everything inside here. Remember, parentheses first, right? So negative times a k is a negative k, and a negative times a positive 2 is a negative 2. Now when we take that 2 and distribute it, it's 2 times negative k, which makes a negative 2k, and 2 times a negative 2, right, which is going to be a negative 4. Now when we combine like terms and we add 2k to both sides, we're going to get a 5k, right? This time we're adding 2k instead of taking away, so we get 5k. And then minus 2 equals negative 4. We're going to just combine like terms. We'll get rid of the negative 2 by adding 2 to both sides. That brings the 5k down, and negative 4 plus 2 is negative 2. When we get rid of our coefficient, leaving our variable, we're dividing by 5, our answer would be negative 2 over 5. Again, 2 answers. 30 and 32 are yours. Let's move on. I've got 33. Once again, we got 4 in front of the here. So we got a choice between, I would say we distribute properties that make it easy. All right, so 4 times p would be 4p. 4 times a negative 3 would be negative 12, right? And this is all going to equal 2p plus 8. When we combine like terms, we minus 2p from both sides, leaving us with 2p minus 12 is equal to 8. We just combine like terms, our numbers. The opposite of negative 12 would be positive 12, so we'll add 12 over here, which leaves 8 plus 12 is 20, and the 2p comes down. We divide the 2 away from p to isolate our variable, and whatever I divide from one side to the other, and 20 divided by 2 is 10. On this side, remember, we're doing the same thing to the front, right? 4p minus 12, that doesn't change. But over here, remember, it could equal a positive or a negative, so this would be a negative 2p plus 8, which means a negative times 2p is negative 2p, and negative times 8 is negative 8. So this time, when we combine like terms, we will be adding 2p instead of subtracting to both sides. 4p plus 2p is 6p. That's going to leave us 6p minus 12 is equal to negative 8. We're going to combine like terms. We're going to add 12 to both sides, right? The opposite of negative 12 is positive 12. 12 minus 8 is 4. Now we have 6p equals 4. We're going to divide 6 away from 6p to isolate our variable. And whatever I divide from one side to the other, this is going to give us 4 over 6, which is equal to 2/3. All right, 34 is yours. I'm going to go to 35. All right, on this one we see we have 3h plus 1 is equal to 7h. That means I can say that it's equal to 7h or negative 7h, right? So when it's 7h, I can say that I'm going to combine like terms. I'll subtract 3h from both sides. 7h minus 3h is 4h. I'm going to divide by 4, right, from both sides, isolating my variable. 1 divided by 4 is 1/4. And now when it is negative 7h, I can say, well, when I combine like terms with my variables and I subtract 3h, I'm going to be combining negative 7h with negative 3h, and that makes negative 10h. This time when I divide out my coefficient away, I'll be dividing negative 10. So my answer would be negative 1/10. All right, number 36 is yours, number 37 is mine. We've got f minus 4 over 3 equals, sorry, the absolute value of f minus 4 over 3 equals the absolute value of f plus 1 over 6. When we do this, we realize we're going to be putting a negative sign over the second part, right, or next to it. So on this one, we get f minus 4 over 3 equals f plus 1/6. But over here, we're going to get f minus 4 over 3 equals minus, right, a negative times f plus 1 over 6. So when we have this one, we realize we're going to be subtracting f from both sides, which leaves us with negative 4 over 3 equals 1/6. This is never true, right? The statement is false. So this original equation only has one solution. And that's because this is going to turn this to a negative f, right? And this would be a negative 1/6. When it's a negative f, I'll be adding f to get rid of it, which is going to be adding f over here, and that's going to give me 2f's. Now, when I combine my like terms, I'll be adding 4 over 3 to get rid of that negative 4 over 3. Whatever I add to one side or to the other, and 1 over 6 plus 4 over 3 is equal to 7 over 6. Now I have 2f equals 7 over 6. To solve this, I will divide my coefficient away, leaving my variable. So I'm going to divide by 2. Whatever I divide from one side to the other, 7 over 6 divided by 2 is going to give me 2 over 12. All right? And you might be thinking, how did you, or excuse me, 7 over 12. You might be thinking, how did you get 7 over 12? Remember, when I have a fraction divided by a fraction, this was 7 over 6 divided by 2. Right? I use keep, change, flip. So this is going to be 7 over 6 times, remember this is 2 over 1, so when we flip it, it becomes 1 over 2. Now I have 7 times 1, which is 7, and 6 times 2, which is 12, and as you can see, that's where we got 7 over 12. All right? We're going on to number 39. This one says write an absolute value equation that has the given solution. We're writing an equation that gives us a solution of x is equal to 8 or x is equal to 18. Well, I could say that 18 minus 8, right, is equal to 10. 18 minus 8 divided by 2 equals 10 over 2, which equals 5, right? I can also say that 8 plus 5 equals 13. So we're going to go ahead and say, remember this is where we got 18, right? We minus 8 from it, right? And we divide it by 2, and that gave us, because we're finding the average, right? We divide by 2, and that gave us 5. But over here, we're going to take that 5, we're going to minus it from 8, and that's going to give us 13. So we can put x minus 13 is equal to 5. And you can see where the solution is going to come up now from doing this. If I was to do this, I would have x minus 13 equals 5. Or, right, I could have x minus 13 is equal to negative 5, right? As you can see, when I add 13 to both sides, x is going to give me 18, which was one of our answers, right? And then when I do x minus 13 equals negative 5, I'll add 13 again. And 13 minus 5 is 8, which gives me my other answer. All right, and you have number 40. Looks like I'm done with my homework. Good luck with yours. I will see you in class for grading. Have a great night. See you later.